In the Kherson region, there is clearly something going on. We were saying yesterday that there's been a news blackout from Kiev, and they always do this when they're on the offensive, when they think they'll have something to report in a little while. And the situation on the ground, as we know it, is that the Russians are holding a line from Snehurivka to Milove, and they're trying to hold that line against Ukrainian attacks south, moving south against that line. And also, the Ukrainians are trying to get behind the defences of Kherson in the southwest. They're trying to get round the back of it, and they're putting pressure on the city itself. We knew that that was going on. We don't know what's new, although we can guess. And, for instance, the Russians have been saying on social media for weeks that the 63rd Mechanised Brigade, the Ukrainian 63rd, have been completely destroyed in this offensive. They don't exist anymore. Well, believe me, they do exist, and they're doing pretty well. We won't talk about what they're doing, but they're doing rather well, and they're moving quite quickly. And elsewhere, things are happening. So Ben Wallace was in Washington yesterday talking to Lloyd Austin, his counterpart in the States. That's unusual, a sudden trip at short notice. The RAF had an RC-135, a rivet joint as it's called. That's the surveillance aircraft. And it was in the Black Sea yesterday with 2 Typhoons riding shotgun to protect it. And it spent some time yesterday just going around in circles, literally listening to everything that was going on the coast. The rivet joint, they just hoover up everything that they can get from the ground, including the telephone calls that soldiers might be making. I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't another rivet joint up again today, somewhere in the Black Sea. We'll find out probably later on today when we see the flight tracks that have been created. Something is happening. We don't really know what it is, but clearly the Russians now are talking about withdrawing civilians from Kherson, by which they mean the Russians who want to go and those Russians who may have collaborated with the authorities, and there are queues building up for the ferries to get out. We don't know how big these queues may become, but clearly the Russians are preparing to do one of 2 things in Kherson, either to withdraw their troops or to fight for it. We don't know which. The General Surovikin, he is believed back last September to have said to Putin, we need to withdraw. We need to draw a safer line a bit further east than we are now, or we'll be surrounded. Putin is believed to have said, no, you've got to stay. Surovikin seems to be softening up with the Russian public, possibly for, as Dominic said, either a withdrawal or a really big battle around Kherson in which maybe new weapons might be used. We'll see. Meanwhile, the other front is still very active. Up in the northeast of the country, of course, the offensive that the Ukrainians launched at the end of August goes on. They've liberated Kharkiv, and the battle now is all about Crimea. The road north from Crimea is the P66, very big highway. It runs from Crimea north through Svatove and north to Troitska, right on the border of Russia. That is the main highway by which the Russians supply all of their forces further south in Luhansk and Donetsk. They can supply them from Russia, of course, but this is the main line. And there's a tremendous battle going on now for the P66, that highway. The Ukrainians have got it within artillery range. They're attacking parts of it. The Russians are digging in and hanging on at Svatove, and we'll see how they get on. But Crimea is also being surrounded on 2 sides at the moment by the Ukrainians. There's quite a fierce battle going on there. And a little bit further south, at Bakhmut, the Russians are pushing forward. This is the Wagner group versus the 93rd Mechanised Infantry of the Ukrainians. They're making some progress at Bakhmut, but it's not going to do them all that much good unless they can push right further west, and they probably can't. So there's some really active fighting going on here. Of course, all our attention is in Kherson. That's strategically more important, but an awful lot of people are fighting ferociously at the moment for the P66 up there north of Crimea. So this battle, this war is entering a new phase. As we get towards the winter, the Ukrainians are making a big push to get their gains nailed down before the weather closes in and makes operations a bit more difficult for them.